You love Dungeons & Dragons. Now, experience the ultimate way to play. D&D Beyond. Take up the mantle of Dungeon Master to add friends to your campaign. Enable content sharing so that the entire party can access your books and content. Then, after you've noted who didn't bring snacks, unleash unspeakable terrors on them using the Encounter Builder and Combat Tracker. Ah, here we go. You never bring chips, huh, Dave? You get the gelatinous cube. Classic. D&D is for everyone. D&D Beyond makes it easy.
Welcome back to D&D Beyond, and we have a very special guest today because from Overwatch to Apex, from Undeadwood to Exandria, please welcome the multi-talented, the always incredible Anjali Bhimani. How you doing today?
Hello! My goodness, can you be my hype girl everywhere I go? That was like the best introduction I could possibly have asked for in the world. I need you to every time I walk into a room, I just want you to say those
You have
things.
a bunch of amazing work, and as it turns out, it's alliterative. Is that how you're choosing projects at this point?
Just you know what I did? That's the thing is I didn't really recognize that until you made use of it. So all thespians would be very, very, very proud of you. All thespians would be very impressed by your work.
We are so glad that you could join us today. Obviously, we are big fans of all you do over here at D&D Beyond, including most recently bringing to life a wonderful character in Exandria Unlimited. But you are adding to your many incredible skills. Would you tell us a little bit about what makes today special before we get into it?
Yes, I'm so excited. It's such a great day to be sharing with you guys. So I have just launched a Kickstarter for my new book. I am fun size, and so are you. Thoughts from a tiny human on living a giant life. Because as a fellow tiny human, I think you can understand that just because we are small people does not mean we have small lives. And it's based on or inspired by a web series I started back in 2017 called I Am Fun Size. It's basically a love letter to the incredible online community that we have that surrounds us. I mean, you know how it is, like artistic and gracious and giving, and the cosplay and the support and like all of the things that people offer. They're so generous with themselves, and I wanted to offer something back. And so back in 2017, I had asked for a fan art Friday, and all these people just started like throwing gorgeous stuff up online, and I was so blown away by their generosity. I immediately was like, we're doing this now. We are making a series, and the best thing that I have to offer people is my experience and my lessons that I've learned from them, including the embarrassing ones. So I'm going to put that all out there. Whoever wants to ask questions, let's go. And I haven't counted recently, so I don't know how many episodes we have, but I want to say there's almost 100. It's been a wonderful, wonderful ride. So now, at the behest of many people in the community, I have written a book that is lots of the topics that we talked about in the series, but also other things and stories from my life. Like I said, some very cringeworthy ones and others, but mostly inspiration and ways for people to look at their lives in slightly different ways, or look at their challenges in slightly different ways, so that they realize they are not alone, and that there is a flashlight out of the cave if you are in the cave, and that there are so many paths, just like in D&D. There are so many alternate realities that you can live in. You don't have to be experiencing the bad things that you might be creating for yourself in your head. There's so much more out there to live, and there's so much more out there to live. So today, like I said, we launched the Kickstarter this morning because I would love to, be able to put this book out there and get it printed without selling our house, or eating dog kibble for dinner, even though I'm sure it's delicious. And that's where we're at. And some of our tiers actually do involve role-playing games, along with me and the incomparable B. Dave Walters. So there is definitely a connection to the RPG world. There's always a connection to the RPG world. Let's be honest. Like, there's always everything in life. I feel like one way or the other can come back to something in role-playing games, in TTRPGs especially.
always going to agree with that. And that's actually what I want to talk about next. But first, I want to make sure that if you're watching this right now live on Twitch, you know that if you have questions for Anjali, we are going to have a good chunk of time at the end of today's stream to take some questions from you, the chat, and get some answers and maybe follow up on some of that embarrassing story stuff that you threw out there. I
Yes,
heard that gently
please.
wafting into the ether.
I
But
mean, what good is an embarrassing story if you can't share it with the world? Because one of the finest lessons that I have ever learned is nothing good ever came from me trying to look cool or trying to be cool. It's always better to just be yourself. So all the best stories come from moments like that where you're like, oh yeah, oh whoops. All the
that
best
sounds
stories.
very exciting. But since speaking of everything relating to RPGs, I know we had talked a little bit about the fact that you have a deeply personal journey with gaming and with RPGs specifically. Can you talk a little bit about what that means for you?
Absolutely. So, this comes as a surprise to a lot of people, but I actually started playing D&D when I was 8 years old because my brilliant, amazing brother played D&D, and he bought me a basic set for a basic rule set for Christmas, and I devoured it. I just ate it all up. Like, I still remember the feel of it. I remember the dice that you had to like use a white crayon to like fill in the numbers on the on the red dice, and I mean it was so good. And then so I devoured that, and then I immediately grabbed the ye olde timey. I think it was the second edition that we had, maybe like the one with
Sounds right.
the big like, yeah. Anyway, I remember what they looked like, and devoured those books, and then was playing with my friends in junior high and high school for many years. And then once I went to college, it was a little bit harder to get people together. And I didn't really, back in my day, it wasn't so cool to be playing the D&D, you see. So it was hard to find other people to play with at school. And so I was kind of leaning more into playing online. And this was before, I can't even believe I'm about to say this, but it was before the internet. So it was all online stuff that you were playing, like the Forgotten Realms RPGs, but you were playing alone. It wasn't like World of Warcraft or anything. So I played those, and then I stopped gaming for a really long time. And thankfully, God bless her, God bless both of them. Marisha was my entree back into the RPG world, because she hit me up one day and she said, "Hey, my friend Ivan Van Norman, who we all know and love, is doing this great new show for Geek and Sundry, and I think you'd be great for it. And I know you love role-playing games. Would you be interested?" And she told me about it. It was We're Alive Frontier, based on the Outbreak Undead gameplay system. It sounded amazing. I met Ivan. He was amazing. I think my first gameplay day, Xander Genre was there. I think it was Xander. Was it Xander and Vince and Alquin? I can't remember, but it was just like, it was a no-brainer. I was like, please, I will beg you to let me do this with you all. And that was like my first chance back, stepping back into it. And now, thank God, because I cannot imagine my world without it. I can't imagine my world without TTRPGs being back in my world now. As an actor and as a human, I think they're so important, and they're so beautiful. I mean, honestly, Stranger Things did such a great job for showing the larger world, that people who weren't familiar with D&D, how it's creative. It helps build camaraderie. It helps teamwork. You can apparently kill the Demigorgon if you know how to play D&D. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are possible. Oops, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. So I mean, they're on season 94 now. Like, if you haven't seen season 1, get over it. So yeah, so that's my deep and that's my long way around going away and finding my way back.
It's incredibly beautiful. In the middle, obviously, you developed an entire life as a very accomplished performer. Did you ever connect the two things, or was it just a happy when they came back around that you were like, "Oh, I'm already good at this"?
It was definitely a happy, and it was I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. Because the thing is, I always knew that I loved playing D&D and role-playing games in general, but again, it wasn't as widely accepted in the world in the world that I was living in, so to speak, or in the circles that I was living in. But the fact is that all RPGs are just long form improv, except instead of like asking the audience for a suggestion and some random dude in the audience being like, "You're shooting a porno at a laundromat" or something like that, you're getting your suggestions from the dungeon master and from the world that you've created, and you and the other players and the dungeon master or the game master are playing off each other and telling a story, and that it's all about the service of the story. That's what makes the game so fun. It's not what do I want to do to look good, or what do I want my character to do, or things that you've planned in your head. And any good improvisational actor will tell you the same thing. Like if you're sitting there planning jokes or planning how to get a laugh or planning how to do something right, like it's not going to go well. If anything, you're going to look like a jerk. That's probably like the best case scenario. You look like a jerk. The worst case scenario is the whole thing falls apart. Same thing in RPGs. If it's all in service of the story, if you're all committed to these characters that you've created and to the world that's been created by your game master, then the story writes itself. And usually, at least I've found, always in a way that I never could have dreamed up had I tried to specifically write it. All the campaigns that I've done, Real Life Frontier, Undead Wood, EXU, there are things that happened that in a million years I wouldn't have thought of, except the dice did what they did. And so we did what we did. Right. And
Yes.
and they ended perfectly. Like all three of those series ended perfectly. Although Real Life Frontier is still a cliffhanger. And I really, 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 really am still like, I know it's like such a pipe dream, but I really hope that we get to come back and make a third season of it, because it was a massive cliffhanger at the end of that one.
I will argue that unbearable tension is in character for that show. But that
It
maybe excessively
is.
so.
It is. Yeah, that was a little bit like it's almost like sort of like the end of The Sopranos, where you're like, wait, that's it? That's it? That can't be, like, did someone cut the film by mistake? Because that can't be the end. That's kind of what it felt like. A little bit like,
Uh,
a little bit
So
confusing.
speaking of this project, let's take a minute to talk a little bit about Exandria Unlimited. Obviously, for those watching, if you have not yet seen this summer's amazing miniseries over at Critical Role, we are going to be discussing some things and events that occur within
Yes,
it.
spoilers. Go away. I will not be responsible for spoiling things. I will say spoiler alert before I do anything that might be a spoiler, because
All right.
I have cut off family members for spoiling things for me before. That's how bad I am.
I'm
I'm really
actually
judgy about that.
I'm kind of with you on that.
Yeah.
I have been on tragically both sides of that one, but the guilt, it never
Oh
fades.
no. Oh no, yeah. All I know is that one family member spoiled a very large plot point in Game of Thrones for me, and I was like, "You're dead to me. That's it. It's over."
Family
If I can't trust you with
excommunication.
this information, how can I trust you with mine? We're done.
So tell me a
we
little
weren't
bit about
we weren't close relatives. That sounds awful. We weren't really
No,
close.
I love it.
Sorry. How did what?
Well, that person now has a redemption arc where they have to re-earn your trust of the laborious
Yes.
process. And it's going to be
There
beautiful
we
when
go.
it someday
It's
happens.
gonna be amazing.
Tell me about getting involved with Exandria Unlimited, please. How did it
Sure.
first come
Well,
about?
I mean, once again, it was Marisha made the call, and I immediately, before she finished her sentence, was like, "Yes, whatever it is, I say yes." Did you want to ask me out to drinks, or did you want to ask me to do Critical Role something? Whatever it is, I say yes, because she brings nothing but goodness into my life. So she let me know that they were doing that and who was involved, and like with every bit of increasing bit of information that I got more excited. But I was already excited just from the moment that she was like, "Hey, we're doing this thing. Do you want?" Yes, done. Like immediately. And then there were just some scheduling things that we had to work out because I was filming at the time, and but that's basically how it happened. And then we had a really lovely Zoom meeting with Abria, who I had not met before the show, and I fell in love with her within like T minus -4 seconds. I fell in love with her because
She has that effect.
She's just her. She has this like childlike wonderment combined with incredible sass, and to have those two things in one person is so rare, because usually the sass comes with a certain level of jadedness and the wonderment comes with a certain level of naivete, but she's got the best of both worlds, and it just makes me want to be her. all the time.
Absolutely. She can
She's
flip
just
between
just
very down to earth and the highest minded, most abstract, and it somehow fits together.
yeah, and she just like her brain. She's just her brilliant brain is just so. I mean, the world that she created for that show and the way that she interwove the world that Matt had already created, like it was just it was phenomenal. So we talked a little bit, and I admittedly I was not familiar with campaign 1 at the time. I was trying to catch up on everything, and so I was like, I got to read the whole Critical Role book to figure out what's going on, so I know the backstory and Thordak and all the things. And then yeah, so I worked with her pretty closely, or pretty clearly. Like I let her know what I was putting together for the character of Fiera, and then we did the thing. The only thing, and I don't know if this is, I don't think this is a spoiler, but we did do some play tests so that I could be familiar with the members of the cast that I hadn't met. The only person I hadn't actually met was Amy, who I also immediately fell in love with. But everybody else I either knew from the world or from playing with them. And so we did a play test, but I actually didn't get to see the episodes before I showed up, before we shot it. So I really didn't know what had happened beforehand. I had watched a little bit. I watched episode 3 because there apparently was, I had no idea that there was a possibility that I might actually be called in to do that. So that would have been very interesting because I was not dressed for the occasion. But yeah, it was very much just like Fiera stepping into this party, not knowing what was going on with them beforehand.
Which worked really well to bring in
cool. Yeah.
mid-story. How did you settle on and we are in spoilers territory for Exandria Unlimited.
Spoilers.
How did you got
the scene? Spoilers.
Lead them into an incredibly cool location? Did that come from you, from Abria? Did you decide together that would make sense? Because it's one of the most wonderful pieces of lore in the whole run.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. So Abria had mentioned that she wanted me to be connected to this particular location. But she hadn't necessarily told me how we were going to find it, when we were going to find it. I mean, there's always an if, because if the party decides to go in another direction, you are screwed and then you can't go there. That's why I can never be a dungeon master, because I'm like, what do I do? They went the wrong way. What do I do? But I say I can never do it, but I know someday I'm going to do it because I really want to. And then I'm going to need like a lifetime supply of Xanax just for that one night. Yeah, so there was definitely some backstory that she had given me about that, but so much of it was just us riffing off each other about how it was going to happen. I mean, there was an entire sort of test to get there that I didn't really know about. There was a lot of me pretending that I knew what was happening.
Oh, you pulled it off
in order for it to look like I knew what I was happening. In fact, I don't even know if I think we might have talked about this on the wrap up, so I don't think it's an entire spoiler, but there was a whole like side experience with an NPC in this location that was nowhere in the plans, and I threw it out, and Abria was like, okay, we're going there. We're doing this thing that I didn't plan for. We're having this giant side situation going on. So, I mean, she just rolled with it. I mean, I feel like it is such a testament to the supportiveness of really great game masters when people like she and Ivan and Matt and Brian Foster too, like all those are, the people that I've gotten to play with. When they basically have said to me, maybe not in so many words, but said, if it's a good story, I'll roll with it. At the very least, I will give you a chance to roll to see if you can do the thing. But knock yourself out. Like, let's see what happens. And so I was kind of testing those waters, I think, a little bit extra with Abria, because she was like, I'll work with it. I'll work with whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm playing a very confident character, so I'm going to be really confident about this decision and hope it's the right one. And it turned
I
out okay.
love that.
Our characters ended up very well fed for that episode, thanks to that, and for several episodes after, if I'm not mistaken, thanks to that little side hustle that we went on.
Absolutely worth it. How did you settle on what you wanted to bring to the table? You had mentioned, I think, in one of the newsletters that you had played a different fire genasi and that sort of left you hungering for more. But where did Fiera come from?
That is exactly right. So Fiera actually came from another Fiera. I had done a one shot for charity with Andrew Struther from Roll for Persuasion, and Brian W. Foster was in it as well. And I had created this fire genasi character, but she was like nothing like our girl, nothing like Fiera and I. But I loved the first of all, I loved the physical makeup of the character. There's just something. I mean, I may be a Virgo, but I feel like I should have been a fire sign, because there's some obsession that I have with fire characters. So maybe it's because I love red hair. I don't know. But so I had always, after that one shot, I kept it in the back of my head of like, oh, that's so sad that character is just gonna like not happen anymore. And it was much more of a comic situation in that one shot as well. So then I decided to sort of revive that combination of traits, change her class, because I want to be a monk in real life. I just want to do, as they say, dope monk shit. That's what I want to be in real life. I feel like that's the action hero class. That's what I want to be. Although Liam definitely proved that a halfling paladin can be, or a halfling. What was he? Whatever he was, he proved that that's a little like that can be a superhero too, as far as an action hero.
Gone totally blank. Was he a fighter or?
I can't remember.
Chat, help us out.
In my head, he was. Yeah, someone help us. I can't even see with chat because I'm so technologically not advanced that I only have one screen up because I'm too afraid to be looking in the wrong place. And I actually shut off my phone because I was afraid that something would go horribly wrong. I'm so bad. I'm so bad at this.
We will return.
For someone who's a gamer, I'm really bad at streaming.
But you were saying that you were drawn to monk because it resembled stuff you'd want to have in real life.
So it was just the stuff that I want to be in real life. And then as far as her demeanor and her backstory and everything, I feel like certainly for me, when I create characters for longer campaigns, I feel like there's an aspirational quality about them. Like they are who I would want to be under a certain set of circumstances. Very much was that as Stingray in Real Life Frontier. Stingray was basically like Anjali during the zombie apocalypse. If I was a crack shot with a rifle, that part I'm not in real life. But everything about her was very, very similar to me. Miriam in Undeadwood, there was an ownership of the power that she was allowed to have in that society, and her really finding her way to maneuver around what could be a very dangerous territory, because she knew I do have a power as a woman, even if society thinks I don't. In that particular time period, and same thing with Fiera. The aspirational quality about her, I felt like, was she's very much a protector, a caretaker, and someone who used a very bad experience that she had as her fuel for the purpose of the rest of her life. Until she finds out a certain bit of information during EXU that changes her path again. So it was definitely, again, an aspirational character. Most of my characters tend to be more confident than I am, that they know what they're doing. I'm a bit of a fake it till you make it person. So that's kind of what my character. Fiera definitely was more confident and more certain of herself than I have ever been. And I appreciate that about her too. But I wanted her to have this kind of older sister feeling about her. I wanted her to feel like a protective hug around anyone that she cared about, which ended up being the whole freaking party.
Which was beautiful. And your goodbye was just like tear jerking. But
Mm.
if you know, all right, I want her to be confident, I want her to feel like an older sister. How do you take those ideas? Like, let's say I'm sitting at home and I'm making up a character myself, and I'm like, I want to have an older sister vibe. How do you put that into practice? How do you translate that at the table?
So that's a great question. And this goes back to just basic acting stuff too. You think less about what, at least for me, I think less about what the traits are than what the intention behind the trait is. What is the thing that drives her to be that way? What is the thing that what is the passion that drives her to be that way? What is the thing she's scared of that drives her to be that way? Big spoilers coming ahead, guys. So big spoilers. Because she lost someone because of her own not trusting her own judgment about needing to be the protector, that's what drives her to be 10 times more, no, I will protect you if it means that I die. I will throw myself in the way. I will throw myself between you and an alligator. I will throw myself wherever I have to be in order to make sure that you are okay. Even if someone else is going to flip that alligator later, but that's another story. I will do whatever it is, and that's an intention, right? That's a thing that is born both of fear, which can be a very intense driver in our lives, and born of never again. Born of a resolution, but it's not born of I want to be like an older sister. I want to carry myself this way. When you're creating characters, there are so many ways to get into them. And as an actor, I love to get into their physicality and feel what their body feels like, especially shoes. I love shoes. I love choosing the shoes of a character like at the beginning of a rehearsal process. Because I'm going to be walking around as this person for a really long time. If I'm doing a play, I want to know what it feels like. And for Fiera, for example, she wears the boots that I wear. She's got these, high-heeled power boots that you can run in, and I've run many miles in them for many purposes. Why? Well, one great example. Here's a great example. This is such a segue. This is not a spoiler alert. You guys can stick around for this one. So my husband and I had tickets to go see Pink because a friend of ours is one of her dancers, and so she had a pass waiting for us. But we got to about a mile away from the stadium, and it was bumper to bumper, and we were not going to be able to make it there in time to pick up the pass. And she was like, "You have to get here." So we got out of the car, and our friends who were sitting in the back seat got in the front seat because they already had their tickets, and we just started hauling ass to the stadium. And I was wearing my 4.5-inch heeled black boots, and I'm 5 feet tall. And my beautiful 6'4" husband was in his flats, just jogging along, and I had to keep up. I had to have it. And we made it, and we saw Pink, and we were very happy. I might have been sweaty and gross by the time we got there, but we did it. So yeah.
DM, steal this. This is a skill challenge you can use in any game. When you're just like, I need a ticking clock and roll for it. Let's see how this goes.
And I feel like I was rolling with advantage that night because of my determination, because I was not going to be the reason that we didn't get to see Pink live. That was not going to be my story.
Inspiration on that one.
I would exactly, like I straight up I will have a heart attack before we miss this. I will get there. One way I will get there. So I was very, very, very proud of myself. And I feel like Pink would have been proud of me because she's in really great shape.
So you think about physicality, and you think about
physicality is definitely something. But then you want, like, I like to go outside in sometimes. Sometimes other people like to go inside out. It really depends on how you feel. But I do feel like for role-playing games especially, it's really fun to imagine the physicality of your character, because we get to play races and fantasy characters that are so different from what we humanoids are used to, and so for Fiera, it was definitely like the pride of having, like, being born from the elemental plane of fire, like being this being who is there is no hiding if you are her, so you don't hide. You may turn yourself off where you stop paying attention to other people, but there is no shrinking. She's not a shrinker. So that physicality is a big thing. And I think that then finding the physicality then lends itself to, well, if someone carries themselves like this, what does this mean about them? Or what does it mean they're hiding? Maybe she
Mhm,
carried it was, you can always have a character who carries themselves with bravado, but they're doing it to hide something, you know. I think our so many of the folks in EXU, particularly Robbie, did such a great job of this, of being someone on the outside who's carrying a certain amount of pain on the inside that we gradually got to see little snippets of. But looking the way Dorian Storm looked, you would never know. You would never know that. So how does that change the character?
and how do
But
you
yeah,
tip your hand
intention and
just enough
physicality.
to the audience? Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the other thing is I think there is a commitment to telling the story that you automatically get when you know there is an audience. And I think a lot of us forget that commitment to the story if we're playing at our home games. I mean, you can screw around. You should screw around. You should have fun, obviously. Look at the things that we talk about. You don't come up with the glitter shitter if you're not screwing around, or the ash hole. Like, none of those things happen if you're not willing to just have a good time, right? But there is a commitment to telling the story when you think of this story is for the greater good. It is for public consumption. It is for other people. And I think it's very easy, if you're not thinking of the story as something bigger than any one member of the party, if you're not thinking of the importance of the story, it's very easy to just kind of like not be committed to it. And I take my fun very seriously. I take everything very seriously except myself. I liked, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And so if we're going to play a game, I'm going to play a game. And I very much appreciate the commitment to storytelling that comes from all these beautiful parties and shows that I've been able to be a part of, because the story really does serve the audience. The story is there for all of us. Storytelling is there to serve. That's why the theater has lasted since the dawn of time, the ancient Greeks. It's still going on. There's storytelling is such a powerful way that we connect. It's such a powerful way we learn. It's such a powerful way we work through things. So when you are doing something in service of the story, it is so much more important than anything you can do for yourself.
Mm.
And
And it's interesting
the
there.
commitment to that is really beautiful to me. And almost, I mean, it's almost, dare I say, noble, because you are putting your own desires and your own needs and your own wants aside at the service of what will this story do for someone else.
I will say that I think that's something that makes the fact that RPGs are teamwork, that they're collaborative, is something that for me makes like the individual cool moments are so much sweeter because you can see how other people help to set it up and you want to do that for them.
Yes.
And it lends a really
Yes.
wonderful memorable flavor to that. And even if you are, there are huge differences in playing home games and playing for stream and for audiences that I would love to
Of
have like a
course.
whole separate conversation about. But I will say, even in a home game, your audience is the rest of the table, not in the sense that you feel it's your job to
Yes.
entertain them, but in that like everything you put out is landing with someone else who can react to it in that way. So even at
Hmm.
a home game, you're not alone. If that makes sense. You're
Correct.
still
Yeah, yeah,
participating in that.
because that, even like, one of my favorite things about playing with Crit Roll, or with Ivan and the gang, then, or with Ivan and the gang, sounds like Cool in the Gang. But one of my favorite things is that not only do we get to do the performance and the playing, whatever, but you get to revel in the genius of the other people around you. And we can all do that at our home games. Like when someone does something clever or says something clever or just has a witty reaction, or there's great teamwork happening, and suddenly like three members of the party, you don't know how it happened, but they suddenly ended up in sync and they made this thing happen. And how cool is that? Like that that kind of excitement only comes from, again, putting yourself, even though you have to be aware of your character, and you have to be aware of your character can do and what they're committed to and all of those things. You also have to see the bigger picture at the same time, and the bigger picture is to tell the story and have fun. That's pretty much it,
Okay.
and make it fun for
And
everyone, not just you.
I love just endless plus ones to all of that. One other thing you get to do in TTRPGs that might be different from some of the other areas where you've lent your talents is that if you are working, let's say, with a video game, you have an incredible team of people who are crafting this character with you, who are bringing art to the table, who are like
Hmm.
determining story stuff. And in a TTRPG, you may be working with an artist who's helping you to imagine things, but you also like how did you decide things like, all right, what should her version of monk abilities look like? Because you had some flavor going on there.
Right. I did have flavor. A lot of that was working with Abria when we started, and combining the fact that she was a Way of Four Elements monk and that she was a fire genasi with each other. So that was my personal preference of what I wanted her to do. And Abria was like, cool, well, we'll just bend the rules a little bit. Like water whip, lava whip. That's cool. No big deal. And which I was so happy to finally get to use, because I really didn't use all my dope monk shit until later on in the game. And so that's definitely a huge part of things, was putting the character together with Abria, and letting her know, like, this is the backstory. Does it work? This is the backstory I created for myself. Does it fit in the world? You don't tell me about anybody else. Just tell me if it fits. Does this work for you? So there was a little bit of early conversation about who this is, because I think the rest of the cast had a little more playtest time, so they could try things out. And I did 2 days, like 2 few-hour sessions of playtesting, just to remind me how to play D&D, because it had been a minute. And then also to try out this character and her completely unplaceable accent. So most of the character choices, though.
We'll come back to that. Okay.
No, tell me. Okay.
No,
well, most of the character choices were blissfully. I mean, she was very generous in being like, just make some choices and I'll work with it.
Amazing. And so we did end up with wonderful things like lava whip, and ways to use the rules of the game but make it fit your character. How did you how did you decide on the accent?
Well, I knew that I wanted her to be other, for many, many reasons. Both her coming from a completely different plane made a difference, and I just wanted her to have like more of a sense of other, that she was a far traveler, that she was someone from faraway lands, and that there was a nobility to it. And then I just wanted her accent to be something that we couldn't really tell where she was from, that she was a product of all the places she had been. That just because, again, I think especially in fantasy and science fiction and games, it's very easy. It's still hard for us to think beyond what we know in our world. Like, we forget playing Overwatch or Apex Legends that these are set in the future. So even though this is the Indian character, there might not be an India on this planet. There might not be it might be it might be a completely different thing. So there is so much to identify with, but there's also a sense of fantasy to it that leaves you open to do so many more things. And I very much wanted to make Fiera that way. I wanted to give her this regal otherness, but not be able to put her in any one place. That's what I wanted to. Now,
I love that.
If/when we ever get to meet her, spoiler alert. If we ever get to meet her sister, that's a whole different character, and I'm very excited because I know who that character is in my head already. I'm hoping and praying someday in some alternate universe we get a chance to make that happen, because well, she's got to come out.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
I know that folks have a lot of questions about, like, they get nervous about using voices in their games, and obviously there are very reasonable concerns to picking up like an accent that you yourself don't have, especially if you're performing for the public.
Yes, no, of course, and I gotta say, I so appreciate everybody's concern in today's day and age for, like, just essentially not wanting to offend, not wanting to appropriate, not wanting to offend. When you are not playing in public, I think, and maybe this might be a faux pas for me to say, but I personally feel this way. This is just my take on it. Taking on an accent when you are not necessarily doing it for public consumption is just another way in to a character. And as long as you are respectful of the tradition that accent may come from, whether you're doing a good job of the accent or not, that's your choice. You're trying to embody something. If you are doing it out of love and respect and wanting this character to be something other than you, go to town. We don't get mad at 3-year-olds for playing fairy princess if they make a funny voice for it. Why would I do that to me? Now, if it starts becoming something where you're using it in a way to make fun of a particular group of people or a particular demographic or a particular minority, then it's a whole different story, and I'm not here for that. But I do think that playing with voices and playing with accents is my job. So as long as I feel like as long as someone is doing it with respect, and if there are other people around who may be able to educate you on a particular tradition, I would highly recommend having those conversations with them. Then I think that's fine. It's all respect is really at the base of it all.
What's the 30-second version of if somebody wants to try, like, I want to try to do Sean Connery's voice because I love old Bond movies and I'm just doing this for
Yep.
myself to see if I can learn. What's the
You go
30
on
second? How do you start
YouTube
learning?
you go on YouTube and you listen to Sean Connery. There's so many different, no, I'm not kidding. There's so many different databases. The way that so many people learn how to do accents is by listening to other people. I learned my Cockney accent by watching Monty Python when I was a kid. Like you learn by practicing, you learn from other people, and once you start learning the actual accent, then you can play with your own voice in the accent. I feel like this is for voice actors, this is for anybody. If you are just wanting to try on something, watch an animated movie and practice the voice you hear. Or watch, like, if there's someone that you're listening to, I freaking love Salma Hayek and I love everything about her and I love everything that she sounds like. And I remember just listening to her speak and like eating everything up and thinking about like, oh, I want to sound like her, and then repeating things she would say in Desperado, which was the first movie that I saw her in. And I think that is the most respectful and honest way to really learn those things. You can, of course, get accent tapes or whatnot. There's also an archive, which I think is called the IDEA Archive, International Database of something accents. Accents. I don't know what the E is, but you can look that up and you can hear native speakers from all sorts of places all over the world saying the same dialogue. That's a very, very, very useful thing. And obviously it's a little bit different if you're doing it for a home game than say an audition or performing in a video game or on stage or something. Then you should be much more careful about how you're learning it and learn from an expert or learn from a native speaker. I think this is probably the best way to do it.
Incredible. Well, I've gotten to ask a bunch of my questions, so it is y'all's
Okay.
turn, chat. I believe you have some great stuff lined up.
I
First
feel
off,
bad that I
welcome.
can't see the chat. Sorry,
Well,
guys. I feel like
I'm being
bad actor that I should have figured that out.
it works. We've got incredible talented mods. Thank you, mods, as always, are gathering and directing these. It's Yakisoba asks, is there a class that seems too intimidating to try for you?
Oh, wow. Well, I have to admit that there are a few classes that I know nothing about. Because once again, back in my day, when I started playing D&D, there were 4 classes. You had your clerics, you had your magic users, you had your fighters, and you had your thieves, and that's all. Like, that's all there was. And then all of a sudden I came back and I was like, what is a freaking, like, an artificer? What are these things? So I feel like I need to take on Druid because there are so many. I feel like that's slightly intimidating because there's so much there. There's so much possible. Watching Ashley as Fern made me go, oh yeah, you might really need to step into that one sometime soon. Because it just feels like there's so many opportunities to do amazing things. So yes, I think that's both my scary place, and therefore because my scary place, it's probably the next place that I'll go.
I love that.
Suspect.
And
then I do need to learn about warlocks because I don't after Amy playing that Hexblade warlock, I need to learn more about warlocks because I need to learn how that whole thing works and then use it.
That's a very warlock attitude. This power is available. What kind of bargains can we make?
Yes,
You're already halfway there. Pip Drowbane asks, do you have, and this is, I think, closely tied to the last one, do you have a particular type of character that you like to play? Or have you ever been at a table and seen someone else's character and thought, that's my new favorite?
Oh, well, yeah, Ashley was definitely, I mean, all of them, though, watching everybody in EXU, I was like, oh, I want to be that. Oh, I want to be that one. Oh, I want to be that one. I tend to always play very intelligent characters, and I wonder if it would be fun for me to try to play against type at some point or another and aim for someone who maybe wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer. Because watching Matt play Dariax and be so brilliant at it, and having Dariax be sort of unwittingly brilliant, like he did brilliant things, inspired things without actually being the sharpest knife in the drawer. Like I really like that combination. That scares me more than a particular class or a particular race. Like that scares me. It's like, what do I do if I can't use my brain very well? So yeah, I think that might be on the list, maybe just for a one shot to like dip my toes in. But I tend to be drawn to very cool. I tend to be drawn to very cool characters. So I should probably play one that's really uncool or really not smart or really like someone who has a major handicap in one ability or another.
Or just
I think that's probably.
It turns out to be very fun. Someone who's has some not strong suits to play around with. I think.
Well, sure, because you're given a challenge. You know.
All right. What's the best? Oh, I love this. Aaron Lore asks, "What's the best sidekicks or pets, etc.?" They have a suggestion. Why are they campestry, which are the singing mushrooms that just got reintroduced in Wild Beyond the Witchlight? But you don't have to choose singing mushroom. You're free to.
Okay. What are the best?
What sidekicks or pets?
Dog, Charlie, dog, my dog. My dog is the best sidekick. I mean, my dog is in most of my book. Like, that's my dog. Duh.
Amazing.
I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Although I will have to say, our poop flinging fire monkey in the XU was pretty impressive. So I think that might be up there. Yeah, especially it's very His Dark Materials. It's very yeah. I mean, having opposable thumbs is very useful in your sidekick. So
it does come in handy.
I think maybe having a monkey might not be such a bad thing. Or I just have to give in to the fact that I need to have a quokka. I need to be a druid with a quokka because I'm so obsessed with quokkas. It's either my dog or a quokka.
Amazing. Gaming husband. Oh, what?
No, I know who it is. It's going to be, okay, everybody has to look this up after the stream. There is something called the giant Malabar squirrel. It is an Indian squirrel. I swear to God, there is a purple squirrel. It is a purple squirrel. If you look it up on the internet, it is purple. And I think that's going to be my next, that's going to be my animal sidekick if I am a druid. It's going to be the Indian Malabar squirrel.
Well, I desperately need to see that. Amazing.
Oh my God, it's the best thing ever. It's the best thing ever.
We have a great question came in from my colleague, Gaming Husbands, who says, as a player, can you talk more about what you think makes for a good DM?
Someone who is open to change. I mean, I really think that open to letting you be as much a part of the story as the story is in their own head. I remember when we first started playing We're Alive Frontier, and I kept asking Ivan permission to do things. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Outbreak Undead system, or with Ivan for that matter. That's not a system, that system, you can die very fast, very easily, and then you're done. Permadeath is a thing. So he kept telling me, don't ask me permission or warn me that you're going to do something, because I will try to kill you. That's just part of this world. It's not me trying to make it less fun for you. So just do the thing. Make your story happen. Make your choices. And then I'll let you know if you can or can't do them, or at the very least, the dice will let you know if you can or can't do them. But that's not up, don't count yourself out of the story before you try to make it. And the fact that he and Abria both, and Brian, were so open to that, okay, this story's going in a slightly different direction, but that's cool because it's making them happy and they are still committed to the world that they're in. It makes it much more fun to be a player when you're not always worried that you're doing the wrong thing. And also knowing that the DM is on your side, that despite the fact that Ivan is always trying to kill us, he's not always trying to kill us. He's doing his best, even in that game and in other games I've played with him. The world he has built may be trying to kill us, but what he wants is for us to have fun. He wants to find a way for us to survive this, for us to enjoy this as best as possible under the rules of the game. And so when you feel like your DM is playing with you instead of against you, even when there are rivals and even when there are enemies that you're fighting against, it feels like you're all still on the same team telling the story. And I dig that.
Absolutely. I love
Super
that.
dig that.
Vidna says, as a fellow 4 elements Genasi monk, Earth for them, nice. Are
All
there
right,
any
very
other
well.
elements you would want to be?
You know, I think I at the moment I'm still in love with fire. I don't know yet how I would. Maybe it's because of my fiery personality, but I don't yet know how I would embody or like emotionally embody a character that was driven by another element. I don't really have that sense yet, that connection yet. If I were asked to, obviously, I would find a way to do it. But, like for example, I know the air genasi are supposed to be a little bit hoity-toity and extra noble and stuff like that. So that's an in. But yeah, I don't. I'm still into all the fire people.
The
Still
answer is
into all the
fire.
fire people. Fire. They have tempers.
Feather Flight.
I feel like
Feather Flight's following up on that earlier lead you dropped. If there's one that's brief and that you want to share, because you can tell us to wait for the book, what is your most embarrassing or cringe TTRPG story?
Oh, TTRPG story. That's okay. Okay. I thought you were gonna be like your most embarrassing story, period. And I'm like, how much time have you got? My most embarrassing TTRPG story. I mean, I don't know. The thing is, I don't know if you could call this embarrassing so much as just like it was always a fish out of water. Because when I played, back when I played when I was a kid, it was me and a bunch of dudes because there weren't any other girls playing with me. And so I would constantly be the one like creating these characters who were super strong women. I mean, granted, you know, I had them like dressed like Leia in Return of the Jedi or something like that because I was like, no, she's sexy and she's strong. Yes,
We all
she
grew
has
up with a
abs
lot
of
of
steel.
ideas.
You know, we did. We had ideas. We grew up with a lot of ideas. That's a great way to put it. Ideas. Anti-gravitational boobs are apparently a thing in the world of D&D. But so for me, I think it was less about embarrassing than kind of having to navigate that. Also in high school when you're sort of just navigating your sexuality as it is, but navigating that world of like, hey, no, I'm a cool chick. I can stand in my power and I can do this and my character can do this. And thank God all the guys that I was with were super respectful of that as well. But just being able to stand in that power. So it's not embarrassing so much as I think back then I was still that girl who's like, no, I'm going to do it my way and this is what I'm going to do. I wasn't a fire Nazi, but in my heart I was. Yeah,
I love that.
There's got to be an embarrassing TTRPG story, though. I mean,
I'm glad
there
you
are
shared
a
that
few
one though, because I think a lot of
moments.
us have stories like that of being outnumbered in a group or playing, or like even with groups that did turn out to be welcoming, having to find out and sort of brave your way through that period. Not to mention, like,
Yeah.
obviously sometimes there are
Well,
less positive experiences, but like that's a for a lot of us, our early experiences can
yeah,
be marked by that. And if you're lucky, those turn out to be great memories of how you found a place with
right.
folks. But it's still part of the reality that sometimes if you end up outnumbered in a group, that's going to be something you carry with you. You know, you have to navigate it.
Yeah. And I will say, just growing up Indian in a predominantly Caucasian part of the world, because I grew up in Orange County, California. I think the same way I dealt with being other there is what served me being other as the female in this group, which is if I don't make a big deal of it and I just treat myself as I am as worthy as these people, I am as strong as these people, I am as intelligent, like it's just a thing. That's how I look. It's just one more part of what makes me who I am. Then nobody else seemed to mind. If I had made a big deal of it, I think other people would have made a big deal of it. If I had always played like, oh, I know I'm the girl and I shouldn't, if I'd shrunk away from just standing in, no, this is what I do, then when you stand in your power and you know your worth, that's how you teach other people how to respond to you. If you know your worth, it's much easier for other people to treat you with the worth that you know you are worthy of. I think it's when our own self-worth, when we question our own self-worth in any circumstance, whether it's in personal relationships, in romantic relationships, at work, wherever it is, when we question our own self-worth, that's when things start to get a little bit dicey. That's the base of it all, is I am worthy, I belong here, and I stand in my own power, even when I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
And that's beautiful, and it's something to hold on to, because even if you can't control how anyone else, like whether that works on the people around you, at least you have something to hold on to. If I want
Yeah.
more amazing insight like that, Anjali, is there like a book that I could be looking out for that might be coming
Why,
out?
funny that you ask, because today I just launched the Kickstarter for my new book, I Am Fun Size and So Are You, Thoughts from a Tiny Human on Living a Giant Life. The Kickstarter just launched today. I haven't looked at it for the whole time that we've been here, so I'm very excited to go back and check it out. We have some wonderful things in this book that I'm so excited to share. There is art by the incomparable Vivian Chuang, who is Super Risu on Twitter. She's got gorgeous illustrations in the book. There are all sorts of topics that I deal with, including how to get over underestimating yourself. There's a whole section I love that I call how the hell do I love myself? Because a lot of us don't get taught that, and I sure didn't understand what that meant for many, many years, and then I figured it out thanks to a little dog named Charlie. And so all of the sections, the book itself it's a read you can pick up. You don't have to read it from cover to cover. You can pick it up, read one section. You can read it all out of order. You can read it cover to cover. It's really a whatever you want to do with it. But it is your buddy in a book. It is something that is there to help you through tough times. It is there to help you see the world through different eyes. It is there to make you laugh, and is there to let you know you are not alone. And it is available through the Kickstarter, along with a bunch of super cool things like RPG night with me and B. Dave Walters, and signed prints. Ladies of Overwatch are signing some cool stuff. There's all sorts of stuff in there. So you can get the book and more. So
amazing. Where can people find you if they want to get more updates about this?
You can find me at Sweet Anj with 3 E's, because who cares about spelling? So SWEEETANJ. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube at that name. And then you can find me at my full name, Anjali Bhimani, on the Facebook. And then if you have questions for the I Am Fun Size series, or if you just want to send me an email, I have a public facing email for that very purpose. It's anjali@iamfunsize.com. And yeah, you can find me all over the place. I'm pretty easy to find.
Final question. It's a very important one for D&D Beyond. It's one of our traditions.
I just realized before you go on, we also have a Discord that I have to shout out, because Beam Toaster on Twitter, Young Finn, created this Discord, and I'm so grateful. And they are called the Bimaniacs, which is the greatest name ever, and I'm not sad about it.
Yes, it is.
So please, please join the Bimaniacs on Twitter. So ask me, D&D Beyond.
What's your favorite dinosaur?
Ankylosaurus.
What a good pick.
That was a really easy question, because when I was a little girl, I really liked Ankylosaurus, and my best friend Sarah liked Stegosaurus. But I was like, but Ankylosaurus is tiny and spiky like me. Like really, really tough. It's got the little spiky. They're super fun-sized dinosaurs, but they're badass. Like they will fuck you up. Like that is a dinosaur that you don't want to mess with. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Ankylosaurus. Sort of sounds like Angelosaurus. So that's the other thing.
Perfection. That's all I need to know. Really, it's the perfect ending. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Please do go check out I Am Fun Size, and so are you. And of course, if this inspired you to start making characters of your own, please remember you can register for free on dndbeyond.com to start making some characters and telling some stories and having your own adventures. Thank you so much, Anjali.
Thank you guys so much. May the gods of dice bless your dice for all your campaigns to come.